Let's go to Peter Hakim. He's a Latin America expert, knows Cuba and the region well, President Emeritus at Inter-American Dialogue. Peter, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So how significant is this announcement?
Well, what it is it shows how rapidly and sustained way that the U.S.-Cuban relationship is progressing. I mean, this is less than 6 months since it was announced, or just 6 months since it was announced at the end of December that the U.S. and Cuba were going to embark on a reconciliation path. And since then, there's been 4 or 5 crucial steps taken. Probably the most important was what's going to be announced tomorrow, the opening of embassies, formal diplomatic relations, and before that, the taking of Cuba off the terrorist list. What this all suggests is that we're moving along a path in a rather irreversible way.
So are you surprised at how quickly things have happened since the announcement in December about normalizing relations?
Terribly surprised. I was surprised by the announcement in the first place, and then surprised at how little opposition there's been. Sure, we hear the Cuban senators ranting a bit about the new relationship.
And there are some Cubans in Miami who are very hardcore.
But on the end of the day, Congress has not done a thing to stand in the way of the Cuban opening, nor in Miami. They couldn't even organize a demonstration against it. Times have changed on a lot of fronts, and Cuba is one of them.
It's just remarkable to think that there have been no embassies in more than half a century since 1961 when they broke relations.
But let's remember that since the Carter administration, there have been what we call intersections, which function pretty much the same as embassies. They're not formal. They don't have an ambassador or presidential appointment, but they have representatives there, a lot of negotiations going on between Cuba and the United States. The point is not to have the diplomatic relations, but to use the embassies and the ambassadors to continue the progress. That's the importance.
So, Peter, do you think it'll be that same building that will be turned into an embassy?
Absolutely. Go up on 16th Street, you'll see the Cuban embassy. It used to be the embassy. It's now the intersection. It's going to be turned back. Marvelous old building, not well maintained. Cuba doesn't have the money to do that, but it's a marvelous structure.
You're very well connected inside the Cuban community. What do they tell you when you talk to Cuban Americans, when you talk to Cubans in this country?
Well, let me say that in Washington is maybe different than in Miami, for example. But first, my wife is a Cuban, so I talk to the Cuban community quite frequently. And one gets a sense of enthusiasm, even among people who have resisted and are happy with the notion of giving anything away to the Communist Party, to the Castros, sort of sense that this is a big change for their country and that it may actually work better than the embargo and the isolation and the quarantine.
We'll leave it at that. Peter Hakim, we certainly appreciate your perspective. Enjoy talking to you as always. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well,